Marble Madness is an arcade video game designed by Mark Cerny and published by Atari Games in 1984. The player uses a trackball to guide an on-screen marble through 6 obstacle-filled courses within a time limit. It was also one of the first games to use true stereo sound. Previous games either used monaural sound or simulated stereo. As with all games released in the arcade, the idea is to rack up as many points as possible within the time limit. The game uses a minimalistic approach in the course and enemy design. It's an isometric platform game in which the player manipulates an on-screen marble from a third-person perspective. The player controls the marble's movements with a trackball in the arcades, though most home versions used game controllers with directional pads. There are 6 levels to complete, with the difficulty increasing after every level. This game is difficult to say the least, and you will fall off a lot. The controls are tight and responsive, and very rarely will you fall off the course out of your own control. All the courses are distinct from each other, and one course even makes you roll upwards instead of down. More and more enemies appear in the later levels, making it difficult to avoid them all. The game was the birthchild of well-known games producer and programmer Mark Cerny. Marble Madness was his first hit as a games developer at the age of 18. After the success of Madness and working on Sonic 2, he then went on to join Sony and work on Spyro, Crash, Jak and Daxter, and Ratchet and Clank. Following the North American video game crash of 1983, video games development within Atari focused on providing a distinctive experience through the use of a unique control system and by emphasizing a simultaneous 2-player mode. Cerny designed Marble Madness in accordance with these new company goals. The game was one of the first to use the C programming language. The C language was easier to program but less efficient, so the game operates at a slower speed of 30 Hz instead of the normal 60 Hz frequency of arcade games at the time. In retrospect, Cerny wished he had included more courses to give the game greater longevity, but extra courses would have required more time and increased hardware costs. Atari was experiencing severe financial troubles at the time and could not extend the game's development period, as it would have left their production factory idle. Marble Madness was a commercial success, releasing in the Christmas period of 1984. But the game had a short lifespan in the arcades, however, as the short length of the game meant that players had moved on to other games. The game only lasted around 6 weeks in the arcade. The graphics at the time were very advanced, as it used a new Atari chipset and ran on the newly developed C language. The game was ported to many systems after its arcade release: the Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, NES, Master System, and eventually the Mega Drive/Genesis. The NES port was handled by Rare, which scored mixed reviews. Personally, I really like the music in the NES version. The second level's theme should have been the main theme of the game. The home console versions were stated to not be as enjoyable, as you have to use a directional pad instead of a trackball to move your marble. There are many differences between the versions, including controls and graphics, mostly due to the various console limitations at the time. The Game Boy version is actually a decent version, considering the limitations of the console. The Game Boy Color isn't half bad either, although it does contain some dodgy hit detection. The Master System version was released after the Mega Drive/Genesis version, just like Sonic the Hedgehog was. I recommend everyone to buy the original games and to avoid emulation if they possibly can. I have competitions with my friends on Rover who can get the furthest in Marble Madness. We have decided that the NES version is easier compared to the Master System version. This is because the respawn times, difficulty and controls are much easier on the NES. This ice part is extremely easy on the NES in comparison to the Master System. The game includes some hidden developer messages found in the code, such as, "Ho ho, ain't hard disk drive crashes fun? Especially if you don't back up regularly, sob." And a little piece of waffle to use the last 112 spare bytes in this bank, because it seems a shame not to fill it up. Marble Madness had a planned sequel to be released in 1991, though Mark Cerny was not involved in the development. Instead, the game was being developed by Bob Flanagan, introducing a ball-like superhero, Marble Man. He was planned to use power-ups like Heli, Cloak, Crusher, and more. This title included minigames and had 17 levels, almost 3 times as much as the original game. This was to increase the length of the game dramatically, and help increase its arcade lifespan. When it came to location testing the game, it did not fare well against more popular arcade titles at the time, like Street Fighter 2. This was 7 years after Marble Madness 1 was released, and the target audience had moved on to different games by that point. Atari assumed the trackballs accounted for the poor reception and commissioned a second model with joystick controls. Because the new models were met with the same poor reception, production was halted and the focus shifted to Guardians of the Hood, the beat-em-up game. The prototypes that were produced of Marble Madness 2 have since become collector's items. When a game is ripped online, it is known as a ROM. YouTube user Phantom DJ has the only video available of Marble Madness 2. He is one of the only people with a copy of the game, and he is not willing to share it. Marble Madness fans eagerly await someone to rip the ROM of the sequel online so everyone can play it, but no one has done so. There are meant to be 3 Marble Madness 2 arcade cabinets in the world, with collector Scott Evans owning 2 and the developer Bob Flanagan owning the other. Scott Evans brings his 2 arcade machines out to California Classic Arcade Game Show every once in a while. The only chance to play it is there, for now. There have been many games that are considered spiritual successors to Marble Madness, such as Super Monkey Ball, Cooler World, also known as Rollaway in America, and the Marble Blast series. Marble Madness will most likely be a dormant franchise that sadly won't ever take off again, and it's been close to 10 years since the last Marble Blast game, Ultra, which got removed from Xbox Live Arcade in 2011 due to IP and licensing issues, due to a restructure of the developer. If you want to play Marble Madness, the best version would be the arcade and NES if you find it easier to game on a console. If you want a modern Marble experience, you can download Marble Blast Ultra for free through a link in the description. This might be a coincidence, but in the prototype Marble Madness 2, there is a level King of the Mountain, and a level with the same name is present in Marble Blast Ultra. Thanks for watching this episode of A Bit Late, and leave a comment below if you have any suggestions of any future games.